Story 1. On my birthday twice 2 years in a row, two different men. Story 2. I was coordinating his surprise birthday trip with a group of our friends and family. After he came home, he suddenly broke up with me on his own birthday. The group chat started to panic, asking me when to arrive and what to bring during the breakup process since I wasn't responding. I had to write in the group chat, "Never mind, he dumped me," to about 20 of our closest friends and family. Ian, I am very upset with you. Story 3. By being cheated on for 2 years without knowing, because our relationship seemed mostly fine since we attended marriage therapy. After 8 months, the only conclusion the therapist reached was that maybe she had anxiety. She tried to treat her anxiety, but that did not work at all. Things became really messy, and then I decided to look through her phone only to find out she loved a married man and wanted to leave me for him, even though he did not want her. So yes, that is how I got dumped, even though officially I was not dumped. I was the one who filed for divorce. But to me, the second someone cheats, they are internally ending that relationship. Story 4. We worked together in a very social setting where everyone gossiped. I went on a break one day on their day off and received a text letting me know that by the time I read it, I would be blocked because they were getting back with their ex. Everything had been fine until then. The text was very cold. We continued to work together for over a year, and it hurt a lot. A few years later, they went to jail for serious criminal offenses. Story 5. We got married after dating for 6 years. 5 months later, her best friend and her best friend's husband came to visit us and attend a concert. We got into an argument, and she left with them the next morning and never came back. We have 2 children. She now lives 45 minutes away with her parents in the state we moved to just a year before our marriage to be closer to her family. The divorce is official. It was a devastating night. Story 6. My boyfriend at the time came over. We cuddled, ate, shared affectionate moments, and he even sang to me and told me how much he loved me. Not even 45 minutes later, while I was lying on him, he looked at me and said, "Yeah, I'm not really feeling this anymore. We're done." He packed his stuff and left. We had been dating for a year and a half, and he had just proposed less than a month before. Story 7. She texted me at 1 a.m. to say, "I just pulled up at home and am heading inside to bed." I was sitting in my car outside her place at the time with her best friend because she had not been responding to my messages after meeting a friend on the beach earlier, and we were worried something had happened. She was not at home. On the plus side, I really dodged a bullet and have been happily married to someone else for more than 7 years now. Story 8. We went to a Halloween event separately without knowing. I bumped into a friend of his who basically laid it bare. He likes the sex, but I don't think he wants to see you anymore. Story 9. She said that she cheated on me. More than 2 years after the breakup, they felt guilty and admitted that it was false. They only said that to hurt me the most because they knew it was my greatest fear. Another person ghosted me out of the blue. We never had a fight or any conflict. One day, they simply stopped responding. I have never fully recovered, and I am not sure I ever will. Story 10. Broke up on the day of deployment to Iraq and asked for a divorce basically minutes after having great sex. She said she couldn't do it any longer being a military spouse. True to her word, she never remarried or fell in love again. It was definitely heartbreaking for us and the kids. Story 11. By ghosting, she helped me move to her town and then vanished. I no longer live there, but almost 10 years later, I still have no clue what happened and why she disappeared on me. Story 12. We were engaged for 7 years. He joined the Navy, and 2 months after being in Pensacola, he married someone without ever telling me that we were over. We own a house and vehicles together. He kept asking my parents for financial help, thinking we did not know he married someone else. I asked him to wait a few months so I could leave my job on good terms. He told everyone I left without his knowledge and just disappeared. That is a total lie. I had his blessing. I should have known he was not a good partner. He used to go on Grindr wearing my clothes and makeup, saying he was transgender. I have the screenshots and pictures. Story 13. He broke up with me while I was with my mother. I had bought a brand new phone that day and was planning to meet him, but he did not show up, so I decided to go with my mother. On our way back, My mother and I were in the car together when he called me and broke up with me. It was tough because I really wanted to cry, but I did not want to cry in front of my mother. Story 14. I drove 5 hours to meet her parents for the first time over a long weekend. She ended the relationship on the second day at her sister's gravesite. I tried to leave at night and drive home, but my car was blocked in. She did not tell her parents about the breakup, so they kept inviting me to do things and blocked my car in. I had to spend another full day with them before they let me leave. On a positive note, her parents and other family members liked me. Story 15. In the late 1990s, when phone credit was a thing and calls were expensive, he texted me asking me to call him and then proceeded to break up with me on my credit. I am still annoyed about that. Story 16. Broke up with me on the 23rd of December after I finished my 12-hour shift. She also cheated on me with my former best friend. Story 17. I came home and her belongings and our son's belongings were gone. We had a trip planned in 4 days and I was going to propose. I have not been right since. Story 18. I knocked on her front door to pick her up for a date. She was 17, turning 18 soon, and I had just turned 19. Her father opened the door and said, "He's white." Then he closed the door in my face. She and her father were both black. Story 19. This happened last week. She called when she knew I was in a meeting, so I would not be able to answer. She left a 2-sentence message saying she was going to cut off all contact. She blocked me on everything and disappeared from my life completely. I never would have imagined she was capable of that. She was a ray of sunshine in an overcast world, and I will miss her for the rest of my life. I am genuinely worried about her well-being and hope she is okay. Story 20. She was sleeping with my friend. He told me while we were on his boat, 25 minutes from the shore. Story 21. Cheated on, she then left to be with him. We were together 5 years and lived together for 4. It still hurts sometimes. Story 22. Long-distance relationship of 2 years. I traveled 400 miles to meet him. In the evening, he told me he had to meet his study group and would be back in an hour, leaving me alone at his place. He didn't return for 2 hours. We had a fight after he came back, and he ruined the entire trip by trying to avoid me and going out to meet friends, leaving me alone. Finally, on the day I was leaving, his friend called me to meet outside the train station. He said, "Listen, you're a nice person. I hate what he's doing to you, so I want to tell you that he has a serious girlfriend here, and all of his friends know about her." After I insisted, he told me her name. This girl was always in his messages, his photo gallery, and random friends' holiday trip folders on his laptop. Every time I was suspicious, he kept saying she was just a friend, and I trusted him. Apparently, he was leaving me alone in his apartment to quickly meet her. He has been married to her for 8 years now and has called me multiple times over the years, complaining about her, saying he made a mistake, and asking me to meet. I just laughed and hung up. I will forever be thankful to his friend, though. Story 23. Almost 30 years ago, I traveled to Croatia from the United Kingdom to spend about 10 days on holiday at a lovely coastal resort with my Croatian girlfriend, who had just moved back there a few months earlier. We met when she was a student in the United Kingdom. She picked me up from the airport, drove us to the hotel we had booked, and once there, proceeded to tell me very matter-of-factly that she was pregnant by her ex-boyfriend and was getting back together with him. She then got in her car and drove off, leaving me alone in a country I had never been to before and whose language I could barely speak. This all happened in about 15 minutes. It was just after the Balkan War had finished, and as far as I could tell, I was pretty much the only foreign tourist in the hotel. There really was no one else to talk to. I was not really upset that I had been dumped. I was just much more shocked and angry that she had been so thoughtless to let me get on a plane and travel all that way before telling me this. I stayed for a couple of days, thinking I could manage the week on my own and have a nice solo holiday, getting drunk and eating good food, but it proved impossible. Hardly anyone spoke any English apart from the receptionists at the hotel. There was no internet. I couldn't understand a word on the television, and the only English-language newspaper I found was a weekend edition of the New York Times, which apparently appeared once a week in the hotel. After a couple of days alone, I booked an early flight back home, To top the holiday off, I endured a nerve-wracking, very early morning 2-hour taxi ride back to Zagreb airport, driven by a taxi driver so drunk he could barely keep his eyes open. After I got back to the United Kingdom, I received a call from my ex, who told me that she had gone back to the hotel the day after I left and was worried about me because the hotel receptionist said I had left, but did not know where I had gone. The epilogue is that, years later, she told me she was never actually pregnant. Her father, who was paying for her university studies, found out that morning I was flying out to meet her for a holiday. He threatened to cut her off unless she broke up with me first. He was concerned I was too much of a distraction. She was too proud to tell me she was following her father's orders and panicked. The pregnancy story was the only thing she could think of to quickly end it all then and there. Quite the story. I have not thought about it in any detail in years. Story 24. Not me, but I was the other guy and did not know it. I met a girl and we hit it off. A couple of weeks later, I visited her house to meet some of her friends and go out for the evening. We were due to leave at 7 p.m., but she said we were waiting for a man. This man walked in, gave her a hug, and she introduced me. He looked angry. I was confused by the apparent hatred. She then took him to the hallway, and he left shortly after. It turned out he was her boyfriend, but she had not ended the relationship and dumped him in the hallway. Story 25. My ex chose drugs over me, then died 2 days later. That was a rough time. Story 26. Toss-up between two. The first wanted to go to the next city over to go clubbing with her girlfriends she reconnected with. Regarding my relationships, I'm pretty much of the thought that if you don't trust your partner, then why are you together? So I never used to object. She started going every weekend. After 3 months, she dumped me for someone she met while clubbing but had hooked up with him for a week before dumping me. The second one hurt more. We'd been together for over a year. She had debt from her past but was slowly getting out of it. She'd never take a penny from me, but I was working equally hard so that when we were ready to move, we would have a blank slate to start on. We both wanted to move to Australia for our careers, but in very competitive fields. In reality, with hers, she'd probably have to start off as a volunteer. One day, a business opportunity landed on my 2 friends and my lap. It was back in my hometown, but it was too good an opportunity to pass up. We worked out the finances. Without going too much into a long post, our take-home pay would be enough in the first year that I could live at home, finance her to do volunteering while being in Australia, cover her bills, and wipe out her remaining debt. After 2 years, I could afford a plot of land over there, and after 3 more years, enough to have a house built. At that point, I could pay someone to do my share of the business, move out there properly, and go back to doing what I wanted as a career. When I presented the option, all I was greeted with was, "So I'll be a glorified prostitute." The relationship went downhill after that and ended because she ended up on a work night out kissing a coworker all night. In all honesty, I have not been bothered with a relationship since then, and that was 6 years ago. Story 27. Ghosted then blocked. Twice this year. I don't understand it. The second girl even complained about how terrible ghosting is. She did it 3 weeks later herself and blocked me the next day. I just want someone to want me. Story 28. He came over in the morning and broke up with me. I went to work and was fired. It was a very bad day. Story 29. He stole my skateboard and stopped contacting me. One of our mutual friends told me we were done. I eventually got my skateboard back. Story 30. 1 hour after I was woken up from emergency surgery, he smashed my phone and ran out of the hospital. It took him 2 hours to move out of the apartment we had lived in for 4.5 years, which I had been paying for. He did not pay any bills or groceries. Our dog was found hiding in fear behind some furniture after he left the apartment. His reason was that my mother was not kind to him while I was in surgery, asking him not to put his shoes on the hospital bed where they would place me after surgery. She says she did no such thing and that he was the one acting aggressively and agitated. I had to stay 4 days in the hospital, dealing with surgery pain and heartbreak at the same time. The nurses were confused about why they kept finding me crying in my room. Story 31. You made me realize that getting dumped via text or having your Facebook relationship end is not that bad. Story 32. Not mine, but an ex. Apparently, she was dating a guy who lived in a nearby city about 2 hours away by train. Neither of them could drive. My ex was on the train visiting him when he texted her asking to break up. It was an express train that didn't stop until it reached his city, and she was only halfway there. She told me she cried the rest of the way there and all the way back. Story 33. By inviting me for drinks with her and friends, then sitting on his lap across the room. Story 34. One morning, my Facebook relationship status changed, and I was blocked. I went from Emer is in a relationship with her name to only Emer is in a relationship. It turns out people can tell who got dumped that way. The dumper's relationship status disappears completely, and the dumpee is left in a relationship. That was interesting. My mistake was that I talked about my exes too much. It did not matter that we were at a party and I was telling stories, implying how lucky I was with her. Years later, in another relationship, she made me talk about my exes, was very amused, gained a confidence boost, and our fling turned into a 2-year relationship. I am still very reluctant to go public with my relationship and talk about my exes in any way. Story 35. The morning after I lost my virginity to that person, at least he waited until I got back to my place, I guess. Story 36. It was in 2020, and he ended up moving in after about 5 months of dating. It wasn't ideal, but with his sisters both being either pregnant or freshly postpartum and his immunocompromised father, I let him stay with me since we both still had to work. I quit my job shortly after, and then he lost his. 8 months in, 3 months after moving in, he said he was going to drop off a card and some clothes to his sister and brother-in-law since they weren't having a baby shower. I stayed home. While taking a shower, I thought, I don't think he's going to come back. And then berated myself for being so distrustful. As it was my first relationship after a really bad long-term relationship, I called him to ask him to pick up some milk, and he said no problem. He did come home and put the milk in the fridge. Then he said, "We need to talk." He packed his stuff and left. I was so shocked. I really didn't see it coming. I knew things between us weren't perfect, and upon reflection, I realized he was borderline abusive but disguised it as playing around and jokes. The trash took itself out, but it really came out of nowhere. I just assumed he was stressed about not being able to see his family much. Anyway, about 2 months later, I got together with a guy I had a crush on for about 5 years before. We've been together 4 years now, and he's still great. Story 37. Not dumped because I never even made it that far, but this is one of those incidents that will randomly pop into my head as I am about to fall asleep, and immediately I feel so uncomfortable it adds another 30 minutes of awake time. When I was in 6th grade, 1999, I had a huge crush on the new kid. Naturally, I wrote him the most fearless note, along the lines of, "I like you. Do you like me? Circle yes or no." I remember giving it to him early in the day because I did not think he was going to write back. At the end of the day, as we were all leaving, he handed me back my letter, smiled, and walked away. It turned out the reason he took so long to answer me was because he had written "no" hundreds of times in every blank space on the paper. The joke was on him, though, because at least he and everyone else in my class did not get to see my horrible, ugly cry that letter caused. Forget you, Jeremy. Story 38. I'll throw my hat in the ring. There are all the classic answers, but I was dumped a few months ago, and to her credit, she essentially combined all of the cliches into one breakup. She lived in a neighboring country, and we were hard at work trying to close the distance. We had known each other for many years and made detailed plans about the next stage of our lives together. I know hindsight is 20/20ths, but I swear she seemed very committed to it. She helped me get the ring my mother gave me fitted, and I helped get her visa paperwork all sorted out. The day we planned on moving in together, I waited at the airport while she called me in a panic. She answered some customs questions incorrectly, and they sent her back, which was disappointing but happens. I asked how I could help, even offering to drive down and see her so we could sort everything out together. However, she had already called her parents, saying she wanted to get away from me more than anything. I was a bit put off by how quickly she went back to a home she hated rather than at least trying to figure something out. Looking back, she grew up pretty sheltered, and I think she just got overwhelmed. When she got home, I asked if she knew what steps she had to take to be able to try again. She said no, so I spent the next couple of days learning everything about travel law between our countries, all while trying to balance being supportive but also wondering why she wasn't being a little more proactive about something she said she wanted so badly. When I showed her the results of my research, she lashed out, backing out of everything we planned together for our new lives. She didn't want to move in with me, said she didn't want to do all the work in our relationship despite me paying for her flight and taking care of our future living situation. She also said she didn't like that I was putting her in incredible danger. I still don't know what that meant. It was just the airport. And she said I didn't value her safety. I'll admit I let my temper get the better of me, and I insinuated that she didn't seem as committed to progressing our relationship as I was. I found her lack of resilience concerning. My theory is that I knew her parents hated that she was moving out and told her I was wrong for putting her through all this. But it is what it is. I definitely could have acted better myself, but suddenly backing out on all our life plans over what seemed to be a minor inconvenience was a blindside, to say the least. After that fight, she just ghosted me. We hadn't gone a full 24 hours without at least a text since we started dating. I tried to be accommodating and give her space, but as one day became 7, I grew frustrated at this incredible lack of communication when she had previously told me it was the most important part of a relationship. After a week, she finally came back with a long text about how I broke her trust, abused her, and put her in danger of being banned from her country. No clue what that was about, and how our relationship had gotten too high stakes despite nothing really happening. When I asked what she meant, she blocked me, and I haven't talked to her since. All those years just down the drain. On the bright side, she was so uncharacteristically mean to me at the end that it is hard to feel too bad about it. But she still has a lot of my stuff, which sucks, including that ring. In summary, on the day we were going to move in together and soon after get engaged, she fumbled getting here, decided to back out of all our future life plans, moved back into her parents' basement, ghosted me for a full week, broke up with me over text, called me a selfish abuser, blocked me, and hasn't returned my stuff, most notably my mother's ring I gave her to get fitted. Story 39. I was 16 or 17. She wasn't my first girlfriend, but she was the first one I really liked and wasn't just a crush. We'd been dating for maybe 4 or 5 months, and I was really happy in the relationship. One day after a date, she told me she loved me. It was the first time a girl had said that to me. The next day, she called me and broke up over the phone with barely an explanation. She said, "I can't do this anymore," and hung up. Oh well. I started dating the true love of my life just a couple of years later, and we've been married now for 12 years. So all good. Story 40. High school varsity track. Back in the day, I got second in long jump and third in triple jump at the league finals. I was carrying my medals to my then girlfriend and we kissed. She said, "Enjoy that kiss. It's our last one." Then left me for another track athlete 3 days later. I didn't see it. Maybe I was blinded by love. After she broke up with me, I thought to myself that she had cheated on me a few times. Story 41. He ghosted me, then posted a Facebook video of himself singing "Believe" by Cher. I wish I were kidding. Story 42. He commented on one of my shared posts, "You really fit being the main character of a book or a movie." I replied, "Do you want to be the other main character then?" He said he was better off being just a reader. It is not the worst rejection, but it was so funny. I cannot get over it yet, even though it was years ago. Story 43. He did not even bother to tell me. He just grew increasingly distant and eventually completely stopped talking to me. Story 44. It happened when I was a teenager on a double date at Disneyland. A friend and I invited our boyfriends to join us. We paid for the tickets. Back then, there was a science-themed ride called Voyage Through Inner Space. It was dark and known as a place where a couple could enjoy a little privacy. My boyfriend and I took advantage of the opportunity, but as soon as we got off the ride, he and my friend's date took off together. We didn't see them again until the parking lot at closing time. I never saw the breakup coming and never spoke to him again. Story 45. People are unpleasant. I cannot imagine being so cold. Story 46. Drunk at a party. I was busy throwing up in the toilet when she walked in and broke up with me. Not my finest moment in life. Story 47. He convinced me to move to a different state to be with him, even though I later found out he was having doubts. He made me move into my own apartment but did not actually end the relationship until I found out my grandmother was dying. He could not deal with my sadness. Eventually, I learned that he had been attracted to his coworker. They started dating shortly after the breakup. Karma is harsh, though. She left him to explore her sexuality with another woman. Story 48. During sex, he stopped and said he just couldn't keep going because he had been thinking about breaking up. Story 49. In high school, my skin was dark. I played soccer and was taking Spanish this semester. I ended up making out with this girl and we started to date. One night, her mom walked over to me and said we needed to talk. You're a very sweet kid, and my daughter adores you, but I don't want her dealing with the racism that comes with dating a Mexican. I tried to explain to her that I am not Mexican. Honey, you shouldn't be ashamed of who you are. Story 50. I am a doctor working in a war zone area and was not allowed to leave the country because I needed to treat patients. My ex and I had been living together for 4 months at that point. He was scared of the ongoing war and decided to leave the country with our dog for a while, which I fully supported since there was no reason for the three of us to be in danger. A day before his return journey, he decided to break up with me over a message saying that he could not see a future with me. He picked up his belongings while I was at the hospital. I have not seen him or our dog since I drove them to the airport. It took me half a year to get over the total disrespect he showed towards me. Story 51. He asked me to borrow money while I was visiting my family. He said he needed help to pay a lawyer because his father was not helping him. It turned out he was cheating and wanted to book a vacation to Spain to impress the girl with the money he borrowed. He never returned the money or any of my belongings and told me to be understanding because she was the Cinderella he had been waiting for his whole life. She ended the relationship within 6 months. Story 52. My ex-husband left me and our son on Mother's Day while I was at a breast cancer awareness walk. He was supposed to come with us but said he was sick. When we got home, his car was gone, and there was an open goodbye letter on my laptop. We had been together for 9 years. Our anniversary would have been that month, and our son was a little over a year old. We had also just moved to my home state from his, and he went back there. I later found out he was talking to a girl who did not live in the same country as us and whom I had also known over the years. He was flirting with her and planning a future. It was painful, but in the end, I chose to forgive him and move on. Not in the sense of ever getting back together, because it's one thing to abandon me, but I could never look past abandoning my child. He was and still is a good dad to our son despite the way he left. I can't stay bitter at him and choose not to for my son's sake. Honestly, we are great co-parents. But he was wrong for doing that. Story 53. I got dumped on September 11th. At least he bought me a donut and a coffee afterward. Story 54. She ended up sleeping with her cousin, whom she knew I did not like, and because she knew I would leave her, that was too much. Story 55. I ended my relationship because of her ex. She told everyone that she broke up with me because I was having a romantic relationship with my best friend. She succeeded. Story 56. Got dumped 2 days before my father's birthday. He was shot and killed when I was 20. Story 57. She invited me over to tell me she was with someone else while he was there. She was fun, but her mom was a master manipulator and so was she. Do not get involved with someone unstable. Story 58. Cheated on. She then left to be with him. We were together 5 years and lived together for 4. It still hurts sometimes. Story 59. Over the phone, while she was telling me she was leaving me for the man she had been cheating on me with, she also took some time to tell me how nice he was and that he understood that I would probably be a little upset. Story 60. She had been seeing the man behind my back for about 4 months, but lied about their relationship. She wanted to reach 1 year with me because she felt bad, I guess, but then immediately ended our relationship and started dating him. It was slow torture being gaslit the whole time, especially since I felt a lot of pressure not to question my girlfriend's actions even though they hurt me. Story 61. Funny story. She dumped me by text. The following week, she called me to ask where that great place I took her once was, because she wanted to go there with her new boyfriend. 100% true. I told her, okay, take a paper to write it down. F-U-C-F-E-O-U. She was writing it until the O. LOL. Story 62. My dad had bone cancer and surgery to remove all the bones in his leg. He had them replaced with metal rods and is fine now. I went over to her place because I was feeling sad but got dumped. Story 63. Slightly not safe for work. We were sexting at the time. I had just said something quite direct, but nothing we hadn't already been saying. He didn't respond for 4 hours despite being active. My text just sat there awkwardly. When he opened it, he simply said, "We need to talk." I got dumped over text. Even though that morning we had been having fun and were closer than ever. The absolute whiplash of it made it hurt even more, plus the fact that the stupid message just sat there unacknowledged. Story 64. I have only been in one relationship. We met up after not seeing each other for 2 months because of the summer holidays. I was very happy to see her again, but it was also quite overwhelming. Then, for some reason, she stopped reading my messages. A week later, she messaged me saying she was overwhelmed and could not commit to a relationship right now. I am still in love with her and do not know how to handle it. My family is homophobic, so they did not know we were dating. We have many mutual friends, and she asked me not to tell them we were together. I do not even have anyone to talk to about it. I just wish she had rejected me in the first place. Story 65. Together for 5 years, undergraduate studies, his Master of Science degree, and a short break before I returned for a 1-year Master of Science degree with a plan to either attend veterinary school afterward, if accepted, or move in together and establish a career if I was not admitted. We had a plan. We had selected towns, houses, baby names, and rings. On my way out of state for school, we exchanged early birthday gifts since I would not see them until Christmas or until spring graduation at the earliest, and everything seemed fantastic. We had called almost every night for years and texted regularly as if nothing was wrong, especially in the months leading up to my move, except for a few nights when I was busy packing and it got too late. 2 weeks after my initial visit and move, I visited on the way home to pick up a few things. Friday and Saturday were fine. On the Sunday before I left his place, he dropped the bombshell that he did not think he could be there for me during school as I deserved, and that he could not wait any longer to start his life and have children. Not that either of us had the job or salary to afford a wedding, moving in together, or having children that year. I am still upset about it. Story 66. Still haunts me to this day. My ex-girlfriend promised me a birthday I would not forget. I spent the whole day waiting for her messages or calls. Anything. I called her, but there was no answer, no response to texts, and she was not at her place. I did not hear from her for 2 days. When she finally called, she lied to me, saying she was in bed asleep all day and that her phone was off. She finally confessed she was with another man and was breaking up with me. I was right. It is a birthday I cannot forget. Story 67. Probably when my recent girlfriend tore into me with a bunch of mean personal attacks, using everything she knew about me just to cut deep. She did a lot of messed up stuff that night. Wrecked my room, smeared old leftover spaghetti on my car, tore up some of my flower garden. But the part that hurt the most was the yelling. She said so many hurtful things on the way out, at least half of which I didn't deserve. Story 68. Christmas morning. Note stuck under the windshield wiper blades on the car. Story 69. For me, it was when I planned a date night for the end of the week. We lived in different cities about 45 minutes apart. The whole week, we had been texting about looking forward to seeing each other. On date night, we met up and had dinner. Things seemed fine. When it was time to leave and continue the date, she told me that she didn't think it was going to work out between us. She went on to tell me all the things she liked about me, but said I was just not what she was looking for right now. Apparently, she had felt that way for a few weeks. Honestly, I wish she had told me at any point we had been talking before that last date. The morning was worse than a 45-plus-minute drive home, wondering what was wrong with me when someone tells you everything they like about you but doesn't want to be with you anymore. Story 70. Ink dazzling liquid society pie offer arrest-friendly attractive jeans. Story 71. It was the day after New Year's, and the conversation was over the phone. Someone was making New Year's resolutions. Story 72. I got dumped on my birthday once. The worst part was that the girl blamed her parents, saying they were making her do it. Our relationship was completely long distance. We met online. I think she was just using me for emotional support until she could find another local guy. Story 73. Her wanted to take a break to focus on mental health, then never followed up. I checked on her a few weeks later. She said she was fine but needed more time. She never reached out again. It hurt for many reasons. I was very worried something had happened to her, but now I know she just wanted out. Took me a while to realize we were not on a break. Just tell me next time. Story 74. Cheated on. She then left to be with him. We were together 5 years and lived together for 4. It still hurts sometimes. Story 75. Showed up hanging on my best friend's arm. Had her friend tell me she was breaking up with me. Her reason was absolute nonsense. I wasn't Christian enough because I didn't have a car to go to her church. I also apparently didn't show enough interest in her body, despite being turned down for any intimacy with the excuse, we should save it for marriage. The day before she broke up with me, he offered to go to church with her, and they ended up having sex in his car afterward. It really messed me up as a teenager and caused trust issues for years. Story 76. I have no idea if this counts as being dumped since it was a friends with benefits situation, but the day after we stopped being intimate, he promptly blocked my phone number and unfollowed me on my social media. Story 77. Communicating through a text message or social media can be particularly painful and impersonal. Story 78. Right before his housewarming party, I thought I was getting there early to hang out. As I was walking out in tears, some of the first guests were showing up. Story 79. He was on a trip and told me how much he could not wait to see me again. The next morning, he was in a relationship on Facebook with a girl he met on his trip. Laugh out loud. Story 80. Dumped on Christmas Day. I did not live near any family and did not want to be a burden at any friend's house. So I just sat alone and miserable. Story 81. I invited her to my apartment on my birthday to try my cooking. It was supposed to be dinner followed by some birthday fun after 3 weeks of dating without any adult activities. In my mind, we were going to have a nice meal and an all-night session. Instead, she arrived in a really negative mood and kept saying things to antagonize me. Then she said she didn't want to keep dating. At that point, I said that was fine but asked her to leave immediately because it was early enough in the evening to make other plans. She asked if we could stay friends, and I said absolutely not and wished her a good life. Things happen. I ended up going out and having a good night with friends, but it was annoying since I had put 3 weeks into it. Story 82. My first girlfriend left me for her ex despite us having an amazing 6 months together. My second girlfriend cheated on me with her male best friend while we were engaged. I am currently with my third girlfriend, and she is perfect. We have had a flawless 2 years, but I still have my guard up. It is crazy how the past can affect you. Story 83. I was ghosted after several weeks of dating. This alone is bad, but he ghosted me by not showing up for a date he had arranged. We texted all day. Everything was set. I got tickets for the movie he wanted to watch, and then he simply did not show up. I would have been miserable if I had not been so angry about it, so thanks, I guess. Later, I found out he was dating another man at the same time. He had gone to that man's place crying about feeling like a horrible person because of what he did to me, and that man ended their relationship because of it. Then I dated that man for a while, but it was only after a long time that this story came up. We connected the dots and laughed about it. Story 84. I dated a pilot when I was in college. He would fly up to visit 2 to 3 times a month. One typical Wednesday, I picked him up at the airport as usual. He wanted to grab a sandwich, so I drove us to a busy restaurant where he proceeded to tell me he no longer wanted to be in a relationship. I dropped him back at the airport and called my mom to tell her I was having a bad day because Basil had just broken up with me. She said, and I quote, "Your day is about to get worse. Your dad just died." Story 85. When she went to college in another state and met some random guy who she fell for, she did not cheat on me but broke up instead, saying she just did not love me anymore. The problem was not how she broke up with me. The problem was who she was and how important she was to me. Story 86. She was having an affair with one of her exes. I found out through Instagram. I confronted her, but of course she lied. Anyway, she had totally shut down about 3 months before this, and then when I was starting to figure it out, she packed up and left the house we own. A week later, her 11-year-old son called me at work. I didn't answer, but he kept texting, so I called him back. He said, "You were right." He showed me texts on Instagram she had left open, and it sounded like it had been going on for a long time. The poor kid said, "I can't do this again. This has been a pattern with his mother." I'm glad she is gone now, though. Still pretty fresh, but I feel terrible for the kid. Story 87. I had an anterior cruciate ligament repair on my left knee when I was 17. My first boyfriend and I recently got back together, and then I had surgery. He got his mother to drive over one afternoon after school while I was still drugged up on pain medication and bedbound, and he dumped me because he could not deal with my surgery. I have moved on now, but like, damn, dude. Story 88. I asked why she was acting differently. She admitted that she was only with me because I made her feel better about herself and helped her fix all the issues in her life. She never felt anything for me. Also, she had been seeing another man for a month, and it was going well, so she did not need me anymore. Story 89. My girlfriend got a summer job in Montreal. We talked on the phone once a week. This was 1981. I was going to Montreal at the end of August. When I called to arrange the trip, she said, "You can come, but I will be spending all the time with my boyfriend." I did not go. Story 90. Called my girlfriend at the time to chat, and she said she was hanging out with a male friend and that she would call me back later. 2 minutes later, that male friend called me to tell me we were breaking up. To this day, I will never know the reason. Story 91. I was in a sometimes long-distance relationship with my ex for several years. He suddenly stopped answering my phone calls and text messages. I felt like things were not going well anyway, but he just ghosted me. Then I started searching for him online. I searched his email address and found several dating profiles. I tried to let him know that I was aware of them and that I was done, but I was not sure if I was blocked or not. I followed a family member of his on social media for a while, and I am pretty sure he married someone he met on one of those dating profiles. That still hurts. Story 92. My first boyfriend was abusive, but I was too naive to see it and thought he was the one. Typical teenage drama. My mom found out he had called her a prostitute behind her back and forbade me from seeing or speaking to him. I convinced her to let me call him on his birthday, which was in the summer. He told me I was annoying and clingy and that we were over. Embarrassingly, I cried and hyperventilated, and my mom got upset with me. When the next school year started, he began a rumor that he still loved me and wanted me back. By that point, I was angry, so I approached him and asked if it was true. He was pretending to be nice and said it was true. I yelled at him that he had a strange way of showing it and walked away, leaving him flabbergasted. He has been divorced 4 times now because he keeps abusing his wives. In a small town, I hear things through the grapevine. Story 93. Here is a way to date yourself to a specific time period. The girl I dated in college broke up with me over AOL Instant Messenger. Story 94. It's been 28 years, and it still hurts to think about it. My first relationship was with a boy I loved deeply. We grew up together, and there was always something special between us. We officially started dating when we were both 18. It was one of the best relationships I have ever had, and it set a high standard for what I should expect in a partner. He adored me and never made me feel bad or inferior. We had our ups and downs, but nothing extraordinary. 4 years into the relationship, I was studying in another city. We had an argument the previous night. When I woke up, I noticed there were no messages from him, which was unusual. I called and apologized, telling him that I loved him. He simply replied that I should have told him that last night. There was nothing unusual in his tone, nothing that raised any red flags. I went about my day, But that night he called me again. Without beating around the bush, he said, "I'm bored. I don't love you anymore. And I'm just tired of all this." The devastation I felt was like nothing else I have experienced, even after all these years. We went no contact almost immediately at his request. As far as I know, there was no other woman involved. We had mutual friends who would have known. Both of us entered new relationships about 2 years after our breakup. Story 95. I would have said by text, but the worst one was by an ex who had invited me to her friend's wedding. She turned up at my place after I'd been out clothes and shoe shopping, got showered and ready, and then told me she didn't want to go to the wedding with me and, in fact, didn't want to go out with me anymore. Couldn't you have told me all that before I spent all that money and time getting ready? The only thing I'm proud of is that I responded with, "Well, okay. Thanks for telling me, I guess. You should probably leave then." Story 96. I was dumped in the middle of sex once. I was deep inside him, thinking everything was fine, when he started complaining about us not working out. I stopped to think about pulling out, but he said, No, don't stop. I'm really close and I want you to finish too. You know? Go out with a bang." I stopped. He had killed the mood, and I lost my erection. Story 97. He started treating me really poorly and I couldn't understand what changed. After about a month, it dawned on me and I flat out asked him if he wanted to break up, and he said yes. Why couldn't he just tell me instead of stringing me along and letting me suffer? It was almost 20 years ago. I am good, married now. But why Theo? Story 98. Phone call on the way home from my grandmother's funeral. Cold-hearted does not begin to describe that. Story 99. Ghosted by the same girl twice. First time on our 1-year anniversary. Second time on my birthday. We had an I love you type relationship. She cheated, she lied, she talked down to me, she left me and ghosted many other times. Only to come back and say we were soulmates and she loved me more than anything, until the last time she ghosted me when I suggested therapy. After 2 years of a relationship, we have been apart for 4 months. We work together, and she acts like I never existed. I have quit dating because the ordeal was so needlessly painful. No way would I take her back at this point. So at least that's going for me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.